And it's working. Yep. Start.
Okay, so as requested a few weeks ago, it's on Zeus and his women. So starting off with the early life of Zeus, his father, Kronos, king of Titans, god of time, a Roman form of Saturn, had prophecy that his children would overthrow him as he did to his father by chopping up his balls. So he then decides to have kids, but just eat the children when they're born. His wife Rhea got fed up with this, and after the sixth child, gave him a stone to eat instead of a child, and hid Zeus, the sixth child, away on Mount Ida, where he suckled from mother goat instead of Rhea, because obviously she was with Kronos. And when he was king of age, Rhea presented Zeus as a cupbearer to Kronos, and then Zeus then poisoned Kronos' drink, made him throw up all his children, coming up in reverse order, which he ate them. So Hera next, then Poseidon, Demeter, Hades, and finally Hestia was first born but last out, the youngest of the six born of Kronos. And then they had the Titanomachy, which was the War of the Titans, where the gods ultimately won and were sent to Tartarus. So now on to the main bit, which is the many women he had. And this is the list of all the people who he could have had children with from Wikipedia. So as you can see, there's a fair few. But one thing I want to make a note of is the way Greek myths were derived from. Each city-state would really have their own collection of myths on who their gods were. So all these are collections of gods, so not all completely true. So you see here, there's Persephone, when there should be under Demeter as well, where Demeter, there'll also be Persephone here. So there's multiple of the same people. It's just how different city-states would have passed on their own myths, and the Greek myth we know today is a collection of these. See Helen of Troy here and Helen of Troy here. It's different ways to look at the myths. But onto his marriage. His marriage was first to Hera, his sister, carrying on the incestuous nature of relationships from his father, and Hera being an anagram of their mother's name, Rhea, as well. I thought was quite interesting. So they had two children together, which I've noted, obviously more, but two of the main Olympian children, which first being Ares, god of war and battle, with the Roman form of Mars, obviously more prominent probably in the city-states of Rome with the Campus Martia, whereas individuals in Greece might have worshipped Ares more than the actual city itself. And the second one being Hephaestus, and in the very first pilot of Crates' Quarter, you could say, with Aphrodite, I kind of went into detail on his birth, but he was basically born a really ugly, so Hera chucked him off Mount Olympus, which crippled him, and he came back making a golden chair for Hera, which she sat in and bound her to the chair, which she then later freed her from, won the hand of Aphrodite from that. Other than those two children, she'll say more children, but mainly in this she'll feature more as a jealous wife of Zeus who gets jealous for her Zeus's other lovers. And there's also times where she seduced Zeus, like during the Trojan War, where she seduced him and made him go to sleep in order for her own personal gain, so that they can assist in the battle for the Greeks, after Zeus had told them specifically not to help in the battle. In terms of the actual ceremony itself, it's quite an interesting story on the actual founding of what the gods would eat. So Zeus held a competition, had a big banquet at the marriage. He held a competition. He'd grant one boon to the winner of who could produce the best food. The winner was a creature called Melissa, who brought a sweet nectar for the gods to drink. And as a reward, she appealed for a deadly weapon, as her process to make this nectar was quite long, and many creatures wanted it, so they would raid her nests. Zeus, being outraged that somebody would actually take him up on his offer, like a genie, he twisted the words of what Melissa said, and he gave her a weapon, but which wouldn't be deadly to the other person she used it on, but would be deadly to herself. And then she had to carry on making this nectar for the gods, and that creature was a bee. So Melissa was a bee, the first bee. Hence why the stinger is a one-time use. So that night, before going to bed here, as you do in Greek times, and during the Titanomachy, Zeus had an advisor called Metis, or Wisdom, and who could change form at will, being the daughter of Oceanus, and if you actually interested in classics, anybody who's a daughter of Oceanus or an Oceanid could change their form at will, and there's many stories of them like somebody grabbing onto them and changing form. They have to try and hold on while they change forms, and then eventually they get to sleep with them. So they snuck off to a cave and they shagged, and then Metis had previously prophesied that the child of their coupling would be greater than Zeus. So Zeus, not wanting this, tricked Metis into becoming a fly. As they're saying, you can become these many great things like lions and tigers, but can you become something as lowly as a fly? She does, and then Zeus captures her and eats her. And then about 9 months later, Zeus had a massive headache and asked Hephaestus, his son, to help him relieve him with it. Hephaestus took an axe and chopped into Zeus' head, and out bursts Athene dressed in full armor, which is a very famous scene depicted. I think it's on the west pediment at the Parthenon in Athens. But Metis stayed inside Zeus's head and was a kind of consciousness. I think there's a Greek derivative word from Metis. I can't remember it. I don't know. In terms of his other godly children, not with Hera or not through the marriage. So firstly, there's another Titan called Leto. Zeus found attractive and slept with her, got her pregnant. But Hera then noticed this and made all the lands shun her, so she couldn't give birth on any land. And so she had to go to the Isle of Delos, which was not attached to the ocean floor. So it was a floating island, which was then meant there wasn't dry land, and she could give birth there, which she did. And she gave birth to Apollo and Artemis. I didn't capitalize the A, but Apollo and Artemis, the gods of the sun and the moon. Apollo, god of archery, music, medicine, prophecy, and Artemis, god of the hunt, of virginity, the moon, rabbits, all that kind of stuff. And during the pregnancy, it said that the python, the predecessor to one snake, was pursuing Leto. So after his birth, Apollo went to kill it at Delphi, which is where the and Python, previously having an oracle there, Apollo then founded his own oracle there, oracle at Delphi, which was one that in all the other myths you see people go to the oracle of Delphi. So that's the origin of that. The thief is another Titan who Zeus courted, was Maya, granddaughter of Oceanus, one of the eldest, I think it's Plates here, I can't remember the exact word. So she coupled with her, had a child, but he tries to hide the child from Hera in a cave near where all the cattle graze. And Apollo, before he became god of the sun, god of the medicine, god of music, all that, he was just a shepherd of the gods. And so he farmed loads of cattle. You see these cattle later on. He gives them to I can't remember who he is. I mentioned him the other week. But he had a giant, and also Odysseus steals the cattle at some point as well. Was it Aeneas? I think it might be Aeneas. Maybe Aeneas or Odysseus steals some of the cattle later on. But the child then went and stole some of the cattle. But he cleverly fashioned some shoes out of tree bark, so he wouldn't be able to follow. Probably wouldn't be able to follow the tracks and find him. And drove the cattle backwards, so it wouldn't look like they were walking towards a place which Apollo could follow. And but he then made the first lyre out of a tortoise shell and the innards of the cow, and started playing it. And Apollo, while hunting for the cattle, heard the music and was enthralled by it. And he found this child and exchanged the lyre for the cows, effectively. So then that made Apollo obviously god of music, and the Hermes, the child, was the god of thieves and messengers and travelers and all that stuff. The last child of Zeus was with a mortal. It wasn't a divine being this time. So later, much later than all the other gods, Zeus had a priestess at, I think it was Tyrion's, not quite sure, called Semele, who was sacrificing a bull, which then Zeus noticed her and went to meet her while she was washing down by a river. And obviously, being a priestess, she recognized him as Zeus, and so they caught him many times, and she became pregnant. Hera noticed this and was jealous again, and so convinced Semele that it might not actually went down in a form of an old crone, which Zeus Semele didn't recognize. she convinced Semele that it might not actually have been Zeus who was courting her, and to get her to make him prove that it was her, she told her to convince him to show himself in his divine form, which would be deadly to a mortal and instantly vaporize them, which Zeus begrudgingly did, which killed Semele. However, the semi-divine baby inside of Semele lived, being semi-divine, and so Zeus took the child and sewed it into his thigh until it came to term, hence making him almost fully divine. And he became the 12th Olympian Dionysus, even though there was already 12. Whereas Hestia, because Hestia then left Olympus and to be in any hearth around the world. She was the goddess of the hearth, which in Greek times would have been the centerpiece of any main palace, any home, which was the communal space in those places. So she would then go off and inhabit all those hearths rather than staying on Olympus. So then Dionysus became the 12th Olympian god. In terms of the human or demigod children he had, there's two major ones. First one, there's Alcmene, is the wife of Amphitryon, the king of Tyrans. He was on a military campaign to capture Thebes and all other major cities. While she was on those military campaigns, Zeus came to her in the form of Amphitryon, and they courted, and Zeus got into her bed, and he convinced Nyx, the goddess of night, to extend that one night to 3 times the length. So he had 3 times the time to be in bed with her, and hence make a stronger son. This son was Heracles, who was so large that it took 7 days to properly give him birth. However, this is also kind of could also be seen again by this kind of system of myths, where each city-state would have their own myth. Sometimes it's seen that Hera, being jealous of Heracles and his birth, extended this birth because Zeus, knowing when Heracles was supposed to be born, made a prophecy that the first person born that day would be the king of, I can't remember the city now, Corinth, I think maybe. But Hera extended this birth so that it was Heracles' cousin Eurystheus who became the king, who then Heracles has to serve the tasks for later on, rather than Heracles, Zeus' son. The last child of Zeus I'm going to talk about majorly is Perseus. So Chryseis was the king of Argos and had a beautiful daughter called Danae, but he had a prophecy that the child of Danae would go on to kill him. So he locked Danae in a bronze silo where nobody can see her, but Zeus appeared to her in the form of golden rain, where and got her pregnant. Chryseis, on discovering this, he then locked her in a casket and threw her in the ocean, where she landed upon the shores of the land owned by King Polydectes. When Perseus was older and Danae was older, Polydectes then tried to get with her, but Perseus would stop it. So Polydectes sent Perseus on an impossible task to kill the Gorgon Medusa, which he does, and kills Polydectes with Medusa's head, who turns people to stone. I'm sure many people know. And yeah, I couldn't be bothered to write that all out on this slide. This is a final note. There are loads more children of Zeus with interesting stories, such as Sarpedon, who fought in the Trojan War, and is quite a pivotal scene in that, where Zeus is considering whether to save Sarpedon from his surely demise under the hands of, I can't remember if it's either Achilles or his lover, which I can't remember the name of, which is very bad. Achilles, I should know this. I can't remember. Achilles or Achilles' companion kills him, and Zeus is considering whether to save his son or not. However, Hera comes in and says you shouldn't, because otherwise we'll stop everybody else from saving their own sons who are fighting. So there's many demigods fighting in the Trojan War. And so Zeus just says, okay, fine, but I want to make it known. So he makes it rain blood, and he teleports Sarpedon's dead body back to his homeland where it can be given a proper burial. Or Helen of Troy is obviously pivotal to the Trojan War, and then there's also King Minos, whose wife slept with a bull because she was given by Aphrodite. She was courting a man who Aphrodite was also courting, so she was given a love potion to fall in love with, or not love potion, but made to love the Cretan Bull, which is also features in Heracles' Labours, where then Daedalus makes a bronze bull which she can hide in and get have a child with the bull, making the Minotaur. So Minos is cut by a bull, and he then becomes, once he dies, he becomes one of the 3 judges of Hades. So he decides where people's souls go when they're dead, either the fields of Asphodel, the gardens of Elysium, or Tartarus. And then that's pretty much major factors of the children of Zeus. So I'll finish that. And just any
time's up.
questions and what happens next week? Yeah, I'm all done.
Any questions?
What do you want to see next week, or anything?
Next week. Can you do Trojan War next week?
Trojan War? Yeah. Okay.
Is that when I'm in?
Yeah, no.
Cool.
Wait, I'm coming.
I'm doing terrorist attacks.
Don't kill me, don't
Oh,
kill
my-
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I win. If you join
Nice
our
one,
CEO,
Frenchie.
Raku.
Very interesting.
Really good.